Welcome to another episode of Fernandez Finds Adventure, and in today's episode we're going to be doing a bit of a breakdown as to how much it cost me to make my budget lithium solar setup in the back of my D22 Nissan Navara. I'm going to start off today's video by saying it's not going to be for everyone, and I know the build series I've been doing, it isn't for everyone. Solar systems and lithium battery setups, it's a very specific thing that people might want to be doing. So I'm not expecting these videos to do particularly well at all, but if you did find your way to this video, it might give you a little bit of an idea as to how much it will cost you at the end of 2020 to be able to build a lithium battery setup like what I did and like what I documented and detailed in my latest series that I put up on YouTube. Before we really get stuck into today's video, you're probably thinking, Mark, that's a pretty cool shirt you're wearing. Well, thank you very much. This is a shirt that I designed. No, but this is a sample that I got from a shop, and they printed it off for me. And it's just a blank cotton t-shirt, and it's a nice 100% cotton t-shirt, and it's just got my little logo on it, and it's just me just trialing out a few things. And I figured that it would be good to have kind of some shirts that I could work on the car with, so I'm not afraid to get them dirty, and it's the perfect color for that as well, so it won't get dirty, because a lot of the shirts I've been wearing have been light colors and they get filled with grease and dirt and whatnot. So I figured instead of buying a $30 or $40 shirt, I figure I'll just order my own and have my little logo on there. It looks a little bit more professional. But if you guys might be interested in buying one of these, let me know in the comments below, and we can make it legit, and I can have a little store and stuff, start that up as well. So that's just something that I thought might be a little bit funny for the start of today's video. So let's get stuck into the beginning of this cost breakdown. Okay guys, so I'm going to turn into a little rectangle on your screen, and the Excel spreadsheet is going to become the main attraction. So let's have a look. I'm going to walk you through the layout of the spreadsheet first. I'll try and be as upfront about the costs as soon as possible in the video, so you don't have to watch the entire thing. But as the video goes on, I will break it down a little bit more to give you some options and some of the brands and stuff that I used. So let's have a quick look here. This main section here is actually the everything that I use. So you didn't have to use all of the things that I used here, but I did make a bit of a list. It can be a bit of a shopping list if you want to use it for that. So I made a little bit of a list about some of the things that I used, and I tried to be as detailed as possible. When I was building the setup, I kept all the receipts so that everything is accurate to the dollar as of the end of 2020. So that is all the things that I used. If I scroll down a little bit, I do have some options here. So if we have a look, and we'll get it out of the way first, like I said, the total price of my solar lithium setup for 100 amp hour battery, it was $1,338.92. Now, couple of things that I put in there as options. So if you didn't want to spend, that much money, you can do this for a lot cheaper. So some of the options that I put in was, I had a battery box. You don't need a battery box if you don't want to. That's just something that I put in there. Marine carpet, you don't need. That's something that you could probably go without. You can just have like a bare metal or a bare wood surface. That's fine. The glue for that marine carpet as well, and also a fridge. So for example, you might not need a fridge. You might just want to be using your solar setup with a lithium battery to power a fridge you already have, or maybe to power some of your electrical equipment, anything. It can be your lights, camping stuff, stoves, etc. So for you to do that, you don't need the fridge. Okay, so if we take out the things like the battery box, like the marine carpet, it'll come out to under $1,000. Okay, so even with the battery box and with the marine carpet and that, you're still under $1,000 to do a full lithium setup with the solar panel and all the solar regulators and everything. Okay, so I am now going to just tell you very quickly as well, get this out of the way as well, is some of the things that you can expect you might have to pay for. So these are things that I didn't pay for, but these are things that you might have to. So some of the things include, so these are things that were free. I didn't need to pay for the wood. So I renovated my parents' kitchen, and I took the wood from there. We were just taking it to the dump anyway, and which I ended up doing with the rest of the wood anyway. I took that wood, it was a HMR melamine, I took that out of their kitchen, out of their cupboard, and I then repurposed it. So I didn't have to spend, what would have been about 50 or 60 bucks on some HMR melamine, okay? Another thing as well is solder. So I still had solder from a previous project as well. So I don't need to include that in my cost. I had some various wood screws as well that I used. I did include some bolts in the full breakdown, which we'll go through shortly. But, there were some times where I didn't, need to use the bolts, and sometimes it wasn't appropriate to use them. So I did have some tech screws lying around. And I also had some little bits and pieces of some bolts that I used as well, just some smaller ones, like I replaced some of the tech screws with bolts and things like that. So I ended up doing that purely because, they're just stuff that you have lying around from previous projects anyway. So, I mean, you're probably looking at, maybe $100 if you don't have, this is your first project or whatever it is. You might have to shell out maybe $100 a little bits and pieces. If we look at the tools used, I used a power drill, I also used a soldering iron, and I also used a grinder to clean things up as well in the back of the car. So, and also to cut the brackets that I made also. So those are some of the things that if you don't have already, you might have to spend some money on, okay? But I didn't include those in the price because, those are things that, it's not really materials, that I should be including, that I had to go out and buy. Now, let's get stuck into the whole breakdown and the detailed breakdown. So this can kind of serve as well as a little bit of an explanation behind some of the material choices that I used. Also too, it will help you kind of get an idea of why as well I use certain of these, certain specific anyway, materials. So if we have a look here, the first thing, and I'll start at the very beginning of the list, is I used some 3mm aluminium, and that was L-shaped aluminium that I got from Bunnings. I did speak about that in the build video. You could get away with 1.6mm aluminium, but for like an extra $5, it's not really worth reducing the build quality of those brackets. So for me, it was $13.60 to get a meter of aluminium. So moving on, we'll have a look at some of the bolts. So I did purchase a couple of different types of bolts for today. I ended up, using some bolts, and then, for things like the fridge tie downs, and sometimes they weren't big enough, so I had to run back and get some more. So there were a couple of different types of bolts that I used. And also I did end up using a couple of different types of washers as well, just loose ones that I found at Bunnings. They were like 15 or 20 cents each. They came out to something like 76 cents. So that's just what it said on the receipt. And I did purchase a couple of nuts as well. So I did buy them from Bunnings, like I said. I think I said that before anyway. So we'll have a look at the fuses now. So I did purchase two 30-amp fuses. One for the solar panel. So to go from the solar panel to the solar regulator, that was a 30-amp fuse. Then from the solar regulator to the lithium battery, I used another 30-amp fuse. Then I used the 10-amp fuse for between the battery and the fridge. I also purchased some grommets. I only needed one, but you could only buy them in a pack of 10. So that was a grommet that I used to put into the rear wall of the cab so I can feed through, and so that my solar panel cable is nice and safe and isn't rubbing on bare metal. Also purchased a couple of meters because I'll be using it for other projects as well. I purchased a couple of meters of 6-gauge cable. I also used some conduit, which is just the stuff that we wrap the cables with. And also I purchased an Anderson plug as well, just to replace the cigarette lighter holder plug thing that's on the end of all of the plugs that you buy 12-volt accessories for. So that was for the fridge. Having a look next, we needed the fuse holder so that the fuses have something to go into. So I purchased 3 of those. They are a water resistant fuse holder. They also have a little light on the top that indicates when the fuse is blown, which makes it really handy Like I said, I've used it before. I tested it out unknowingly. I forgot to put a fuse in one of the fuse holders, and I was like, why isn't the fridge turning on? And I had a look at the fuse, and the light was lit up, and it was telling me that there was no actual fuse in there, or that the fuse had blown. So yeah, the fuse had blown, or the fuse wasn't actually there, sorry. So yeah, and then I purchased some heat shrink as well, just some different types, all from J-Car as well. I also purchased a 25 litre fridge as well. Now, I did an unboxing of that in my previous video. So if you want to know exactly what type of fridge that is and the specifics of it, I did do a video on that in my last video. I'll leave a little card up the top there, should be popping up on your screen. That's a $329 fridge, which I'm doing some testing on at the moment. I've been running it for about the last 4 or 5 days to see power draw, things like that, to see if it can kind of handle doing some light full driving at the moment. And it's holding up well. It's keeping temperature. So at the moment, just for a short-term review, it's holding up pretty well. For a $329 freezer that's got Bluetooth and all that sort of stuff, I mean, you can't really complain. So so far, I'm very happy with that. Moving on to the ratchet straps. So again, I purchased the ratchet straps, the tie-down points, the nuts and bolts for that, and the thread locker I all got from Bunnings. So the ratchet straps that I ended up purchasing, I don't know the exact name of it, but you'll see them in the upcoming walk around video that I'll be doing. But they're a very good ratchet strap because the buckle has silicone around it. It's got like a little kind of protection cover on the actual metal buckle, and which I find has been really handy because I don't want to scratch up my fridge. So they came in a pack of 2 and they were $14.90. The reason why I used ratchet straps and the reason why I purchased them from Bunnings is because the actual purpose-built fridge tie downs are $40 or $50 from places like BCF. So I figured that I could just use a ratchet strap and it will do the exact same thing. And it has so far, and I haven't had to spend the extra money. But also too, all the other fridge tie downs, they all use like a loop system. And on this fridge that I got, there is absolutely no way to bolt that fridge down because the handles are closed loop handles. You can't bring your hand all the way through it. So, I mean, I could cut holes in it, but I don't really want to do that. So I just ended up just going around the fridge and tying it to the back of the car that way. So I did buy some tie down points as well, and some nuts and bolts and thread locker I also purchased. So I ended up using a thread locker on pretty much the last thing I did in my solar build series. I went back, undid all my bolts, and put some thread locker on them so that they aren't going to move around. And I'm also going to be putting some on some of the things I've previously installed as well, because I've done a couple of rough roads and things like my UHF antenna has been coming loose. So I'll be using the thread locker for other things as well. Let's get down to some of the nitty gritty. So we've got the solar panel, which is a 160 watt solar panel. It is from a company called Max Ray, and I got that and the battery and the regulator, the solar regulator. I got all of those from the shop called Outbacks, and that's Outbacks with an X. And I talked to them, and they did end up giving me some discount on some of the products after I told them about, I'm making a YouTube video on it and stuff like that. So I'll be making a specific video just about that. And yeah, it'd be pretty obvious when that comes out because it'll have all of like the brand names and stuff on that. So I did say I'll make a video for them just to show some of the features of it and stuff like that, and to give my honest opinion about some of their products. So they won't and they haven't paid me to do any work for them, and they haven't sponsored me in any way to say anything about their products, but they will be giving me a discount. So yeah, they helped me out a little bit there, so that was nice of them. So if you're watching Outbacks, thank you very much. You're my first sponsor, not really, but you're my first person that I've contacted, and you've given me a bit of a discount to help me out. So, but these are all the full prices anyway, guys. So even if I did pay full price for this stuff, it's all still going to be to the prices that you see there, and it wasn't much of a discount anyway. So yeah, and I also got a Voltax 100 amp hour battery. So that's the lithium battery that I'm using. It's a LifePo 4 as well, if you're interested. And yeah, and still again from that same company, Outbacks. We're looking now at the glue. So I used the marine carpet for all of the surfaces, just to neaten it up a little bit, so it didn't look like it was, thrown together at the last minute. And yeah, and then also used some glue. I used 2 different types of glues for those of you that are wondering. I used a Selleys glue. It's a high temperature glue that I used, and it dries clear. And yeah, I don't know, it didn't really work very well, not as well as I thought. And it didn't give me very much coverage as well, because the bottle was quite big, but the actual amount of glue in there wasn't a lot. I didn't get very far with that, so I ended up just getting some liquid nails and putting that in my caulking gun, and then used that to secure most of the project in the end anyway. So the Selleys glue was like $13, and then the liquid nails, which covered the rest of it, was $13 as well. And the marine carpet is, that's actually 3 meters of marine carpet that I got for around $70 from Bunnings. And marine carpet from places like BCF and Autobarn, stuff like that, it's about $50 odd a meter for the same width as well of marine carpet. So I think I did pretty well out of that, getting a 3 meter roll for $70. So if you are looking for cheap marine carpet, if you actually just go to Bunnings and have a look in some of the sections, it was on an end cap. So on the end cap of the shelving units that they have there. And yeah, I got it for a really good price. So if you are in the market for marine carpet, that might be your best bet. I also got a battery box as well. So I ended up purchasing that from Autobarn. I've spoken about this before with the battery boxes, that I had troubles finding some in my area. So Autobarn, which is my go-to anyway. I know as an acquaintance through somebody, the owner of it. So I know I know the owner. It's locally owned at least. So I try to give them as much business as I can. And and so the battery box was actually in stock for them, and it was on sale as well. Normally it's about $100, and this one was $80, $79.95. So got that for a pretty good price as well, which I was pretty happy about. And I also needed to get some decent sized terminals as well. I had some terminals that I thought would fit, but they weren't even close to be able to fit on the actual battery terminals. So I needed to get some terminal like loops, so I could crimp them on and have power. So that basically covers it, guys. I've done a lot of talking. The reason why I included the price and stuff at the very beginning was so that you didn't have to sit through the whole thing. But if you did stay to the very end, I appreciate that. But that's just, me just going through all of the things and, talking my way through some of the things that I purchased and some of the decisions around the reason why I purchased certain items as well. So I will be doing, guys, in the next couple of weeks, I will be uploading the walk around video of the solar, where I will actually be doing like a really in-depth look at all of the things I included in there. So I've pretty much got my setup sorted now, which is awesome. I've used it on a couple of trips already. It's not long-term trips, just a couple of day trips. And so far it's worked out really well. So I've kind of got my setup sorted, and I just need a few little, bits and pieces just to chuck in there to make sure that it is going to keep it nice and neat and nice and safe as well, because it is behind the driver and the front passenger. So making sure that it's just all nice and neat as well. So guys, that just about covers it for today's video. If you are doing a project like this, I would love to hear about it in the comments. And if you have any questions about any of the stuff that I've used, please just write them down below in the comments. I'm more than happy to spend some time, replying to you guys and stuff like that. If you have any questions, or if you, wanted to have a chat about any of the things that I bought on here, the whole purpose of this was to be 100% transparent. So it's not like, people are going and doing these really extravagant, lithium builds and stuff, and then saying, that, oh, it was all given to me, or it was, it cost an exorbitant amount of money, and it's unachievable. But as you can see, and I will put this as the thumbnail, that, it did cost under $1,000 to do a lithium setup. So yeah, if you guys appreciated today's video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next video where we've got heaps more content coming up and a lot of stuff that I'm really excited about as well. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.